When you speak about an ideology that can uplift the society, what we are witnessing right now is emerging concept of idea of one nation, which obliterates all the individual community identities of, because in India it is a very diverse nation. We cannot do away with the diversity, but still that narrative for the one nation is slowly coming, it's gathering momentum. So when you speak about an ideology, for example, that of Gandhi, the Gandhian ideology, which celebrated diversity, what do you think? What do you think? How we can move forward with that concept?
In fact, any state which want to completely control the society do not want diversity. Whereas Gandhi, being a thinker and a philosopher, social philosopher, he advocated for, he realized the plurality of the Indian society and suggested that it should be retained. So when you say plurality, you see different uh, languages, different linguistic identities, different communal identities, caste identities, and he said we should also understand, not caste and the other this one. We should try to understand them and try to negotiate with them, not one sect dominating the other one or not one appropriating the other one. That is something in a very healthy approach, which I think is very ideal for a pluralistic society like India. We have so many languages, we have so many ethnic groups, we have so many communities. If you try to flatten it out by imposing one kind of one nation, one language, one community, one that it's like trying to cut everyone to one size. Some king, I believe, has tried that. That's not the way of because the people, the individual has his or her own identity. We should respect that.
So, Ananya, before coming to film, before going to the film institute, you had a very vibrant theatre experience. And I can see that the theatre, the plays that you were involved in, were totally political theatre, where we, just as we said now, we're celebrating the identity of the community, of the language, of gender, things like Nagavandana, higher. So what is the baggage that you are bringing from your theatre background?
Um, so before going to film school, I did work a lot. I did a lot of theatre productions. I worked in television. I assisted my father. All of this, I think, helped me, derive at this uh, the the film. The politics of the film, the way I wanted to construct the film. Every time I acted in a play or directed one, it was, I think, was just an organic journey that helped me to this film.
She also mentioned about the politics, but you have famously said that the idiom of film is political. So in an interview you mentioned that. So how obviously political are your films? Because what you also mentioned, there was a comparison in an interview where your films were compared with highly political films of John Abraham, where you said the characters of John Abraham are politically aware of their identity, whereas the characters in your film are not aware, but the way you approach the subject, the way you portray the characters, the politics comes out. So, how do you define the politics of your film?
I can answer this question on two fronts. One on the content level, wherein there's a tendency to bifurcate, look at in binary division, pro certain ideology, opposing certain ideology. That's actually ideological polarization. But I am of the opinion even a small act expresses the politics of the individual. A small, a small activity like holding the glass, drinking water, that action also expresses the politics. One need to understand these things because we are all the son of the society, children of society. Whether I like it or not, the do's and don'ts are the vision of society reflects in my action. The other day I was telling in India, even the way how you eat expresses cost. The way how I sit expresses the cost. So one needs to know, one needs to realize that it's not only the idea that defines the politics, that only minor actions, what we call as quotidian action, they also express politics. That's why I said all my characters, whether it is Gulabi or Venkat Lakshmi or Hasina, they're not aware of the larger ideological positions of them. But they know, they express their political intent through these smaller gestures. That's why for me, politics expressed through these quotidian actions become more important to me because they are not ideologues, they are not well educated, they can't speak their positions, verbalize their positions. So I am trying to capture that because I am take this opportunity to say this, when somebody said, who it is, the sorry, what is it called? Village idiocy, right? I somehow disagreed with that because even the so-called layman has his own politics. What we have failed to notice is that that particular action is not fitting into my ideological question. That's why we tend to call them not politically aware, but they are really politically aware and they express their dissent or approval in small gestures. That's why all my characters are very down to earth people who cannot vocalize their vision, but their actions express that. This is about the content. Then I also say in cinema, the form also is political. When I say form political, over the period of 100 years or so, the form, the cinematic form, has manipulated and got acceptance from the mainstream audience to accept that as the real. We need to break that also. That is another way of expressing our dissent. That I don't go with them. In this context, I want to narrate a very interesting. This Latin American filmmaker called Spinoza. He once said, "I want to make imperfect film." So on the surface of it, this imperfect film is taken as a negative quality of a filmmaker. But why did he use the term imperfect film? Because Hollywood always makes us believe that they are the people who make perfect films. And the European intelligence says the art film of Europe is they are the first film, these are the second film. But this man says, no, I don't trade any of their meal. I want to make imperfect film because if you think, if I am wearing a red shirt with a green pant, if you think that's not aesthetic enough, I'll show you because in my road everyone uses it. So that is kind of a aesthetics for me. So by using this one, I'm trying to question your notion of aesthetics, and I want to tell you there are crores of people who do not want to subscribe to your notion of aesthetics. So that's why I very often like this statement of Spinoza that we want to make imperfect film. imperfect. A lot of lot many people think imperfect film means films with out focus shots, film with handheld. No, imperfect in the sense what they are trying to impress you with the notion of perfection. I'm going to defy that. There I see a kind of a protest. For me, any form, cinematic form, that defies the notion that's set by all the big establishments is a political film.
So coming back to the character that you said, that every character, the way they respond, they react, is political. What I find it interesting is the strength of the power of the women characters that you have created, right from Grasstrata, where Yamuna is leading a rebellion without actually being very vocal about it. And the long list of women characters that you have mentioned in the answer to the previous question. So, how come you take that political stand? Because we need to speak about the gender equality, to speak about the gender politics in the Western context.
Well, in our society, in Indian traditional society or Indian society as such, whether they are upper caste, lower caste, whatever be the community and things like the most oppressed or more, this one of them, freedom are the women. They are, their freedoms are curtailed in the name of tradition, in the name of system, in the name of gender, but yet they are so strong in their approach to life. What is it? I want to understand their negotiation with the real. And that's why most of my films, they are all depressed, oppressed, but somehow or the other, they lose hopes. They don't lose hope. They keep negotiating with the thing and keep active, they keep their activities. And that is something which is very fascinating. We have very often say, because of social structure, the people are oppressed. But you can see in real life, in spite of all that, you see people who stand up to things, people who make their life pleasant. How do they do it? The negotiation, which is actually a Gandhian way of approaching the rebellion. You negotiate and imbibe the strength and then counter it. So that is very fascinating. I am always fascinated by this kind of this one. So whether it is Gulabi or Venkat Lakshmi or Hasina or any other Nagin, Dvipa, they face a lot of oppression, yet they don't give up hopes. That is, kind of a lesson for me. And I try to understand that spirit. What makes them, what gives them the strength? That is, I call it dharma. One which leads you is the dharma, not this religion. The strength. What makes you so strong? That is dharma. I want to understand that dharma of these characters, not the religious. This one.
Yeah, Girish now just now told us how the women characters, he interpreted the women characters as in a Gandhian way of negotiating the reality, imbibing strength, and then countering this. You took that narrative further ahead, where you are speaking about a trans woman or a transgender person who is not sure about the gender identity and still tries to negotiate with that. And you don't give a clear answer what happens to him. Did he die by suicide? Did he just vanish? That you leave it open-ended. So whether he has really negotiated with this identity crisis or are you leaving it open?
In the film, there is a dialogue which says that they ask a question, did he commit suicide? And he says suicide, which means that we're putting the responsibility on him and we are washing our hands off it. So that is what the entire society is doing to them. Okay, so in this whole our journey to battle this, women and transgender women when you're calling women oppressed, you can see transgender women are even more in the strata lower thing. In that, you also notice that, you know, from male to female transgender, the one more oppressed is female to male transgenders are even more oppressed. So that is the hierarchy that we are understanding. So in this hierarchy, what is also happening is that we as a society are constantly we as a society are constantly putting them down and putting the responsibility on them. So that I wanted to express, and that is why I constructed it in this way, but no way telling whether he committed suicide or not, because in the next thing we're again stating that we're leaving it ambiguous. So he goes to water as a metaphor where he goes every time he's trying to change, trying to become a different person, where he's forced to become a different person. So he goes near the water. So even in the last segment, you see him in a sari, very conforming to binary roles, where he's sitting down, behaving like a woman. Yet when questioned, he comes back as a man and he's seen again in the same water body. So that way we try to construct the film.
So, coming back to your film, when you speak about challenging the status quo, challenging the stereotypes, that's a journey that starts from Hari. Yeah, Hari is the character in your diploma film, Avashesh, where Hari is challenging, even though he's too young to know that he's challenging. He's challenging it. That journey from Hari to Nani of Ghadastatra to Anandarao of Kurmavadana that we have just watched. How does that journey happen? You talked about how you shifted from very linear, direct narrative to many layered narrative. So can you explain that before we go on to the next question?
I have changed the narrative, but my vision or worldview hasn't changed. I have used linear narrative and at times narrative which are very layered, sometimes narrative which are contradictory, so that I am provoking the audience to think on those lines. But I have never compromised on my worldview. What I think is right, what I think is not right. I have of course questioned it, but not didn't move away from that argument. See, when I was in the in FTA, we had to make this diploma film. I picked up this idea of making a documentary on this idea, a film on this idea of isolation of a old lady and a young boy. They both are isolated, they both are alienated from the drama, from the politics of the house. From there I moved to Ghadastatra. In terms of its content, in terms of its mounting, in terms of its visual style, it looked like an extension of it. Actually, my idea of making films while I was in the institute, I wanted to create an ode wherein characters and ambience do not change much. But through that, I wanted to create my own universe, like the way how R.K. Narayan did it, like the way how Ozu did it in his films. But unfortunately, then we had to resort to something else and I deviated. But these two films, and also one or two later films, continue the same on the same line. But in between, I had to make other kind of. I made Tabarana Kate, I made Mane, I made Dvipa. But that was my wish. So what I am trying to say is that what we think as inconsequential, what we think is quotidian, there is all these politics, all this rebuttal, all this resistance. I wanted to bring that.
Ananya, you had a dream that you had such a beautiful story at hand and you had legendary co-writers. So what next?